And it took a minute, but the Raiders' losing streak is a thing of the past as they take down the Jacksonville Jaguars 19-14. Eddie Paskal with a joyous, celebratory Jason Fitz here in the fifth quarter presented by Twitch. And Fitz, we got you a win, baby. It took us until, almost the end of the calendar year. But Jason Fitz, you are here this evening to discuss a Raiders win for the 2024 season. How about that?
I mean, this is the first time we've hung out together to talk about a win in a year. Like, because the way the calendar works out, I think it's been about a year.
Yeah.
So look, this has been a brutal season, and I think we can all be honest about that. What a just a breath of relief, a sigh of relief coming across for everybody when you get a win. And I think it's just important. You heard the guys on the broadcast talk about it if you were watching it on TV. I've talked to people that play or played in the league, and one thing they'll tell you all the time is that long losing streaks are such a culture killer, right? And there is a point where it just starts to drag everything down. And as much as we sit here and talk about lose, once you get to a certain point, inside the organization, every single win matters. So this was an important one just to get the monkey off the back for everybody involved with the Raiders organization.
Yeah, big time, man. And obviously, we joke about it, we talk about it, but like when you are kind of in the midst of a losing streak like the Raiders were, and it feels so good to say that in the past tense now, the streak that the Raiders were on. But I mean, you feel it, right? It's hard not to. You feel it when you walk in the building. You kind of feel the sense of, I don't want to say here we go again, but you feel the lack of wins, right? And so for this team now who has been fighting, who have been so competitive, and you and I have talked about that week after week after week, this is a team that has been laying it on the line every single game day. For that group of dudes to get a win, obviously so close to the holidays, the vibes are high, like life is good. It feels good for that group of dudes in the locker room. It feels good for the building, feels good for the organization. And let's dive in, man. I want to talk about some ball, and I want to talk about victorious ball, and I want to begin with, I feel like the place that we got to with this Raiders defense, this Raiders defensive line, going into today and really for the past couple of weeks, one of the big storylines has been like, how does this group look? How does this group respond without Max Crosby? And look, I'm not here to pretend that you can just replicate number 98 whenever you feel like it. Like, he is one of one. He is the Energizer Bunny. He is this, that, and the other. Everything that we've used to describe him before. But give credit to Rob Leonard. Give credit to Patrick Graham, because this defensive line came to play today in a very major way. Mac Jones under duress seemingly from the jump. Mac Jones finishes his day 25 of 39 for a pedestrian, 247 yards and a touchdown. But my goodness, Jason Fitz, is that what consistent pressure on the quarterback does to an offense? Because it was awesome to watch.
Yeah, and that's why, I love the stat on quarterbacks and the quarterback hits and all of these things. I just think at some point we kind of need a stat that just is about quarterbacks uncomfortable, because Mac Jones was uncomfortable for so much of this game. Kayvon Chaisson, by the way, a big game again. We've talked about him a couple of times, and you just talk about this is very reminiscent of what we saw last year with Malcolm Kuntz. The difference is Kuntz was coming on, and we were all able to say, well, he's got Max on the other side of him. Kayvon didn't have anybody on the other side of him that was taking away this pressure. This was all about him just having to go out there and perform, and he did over and over and over again. I mean, this is a truly, like, if we were giving out 5-star performances for this game, Kayvon gets he gets the sticker on the helmet. He gets the 5-star award. He gets all of it just for the consistent pressure he brought in this game.
And I mean, candidly, Fitz, the man should have had an interception as well. I tweeted this out, and we were kind of joking about it up in the box at Allegiant. In the year 2024, none of us seem to really know what a football move is. But to me, from my pedestrian eyes at Allegiant Stadium in the press box, it sure looked to me like he came down with that early interception. But we can talk about that now and kind of, I don't want to say laugh about it, but it takes on a much lesser tone now that the Raiders won. You talk about those helmet stickers, though, Fitz, and sticking on guys on that defense. Man, round of applause for Trayvon Merrick, too, who has been incredible in 2024. Not only on the field, but with the leadership, everything that he's brought to the back end of this Raiders defense. I mean, again, Trayvon today has the tackle that essentially solidifies that win for the silver and black. He finishes his afternoon, or evening, I should say, with 6 tackles, a pass defense, and a fumble recovery. I mean, dude, he has been awesome this year, and tonight was just another example of that.
Yeah, and there's such an element here of just ease and understanding. Like when the Raiders blew the coverage on the long touchdown, that's what really occurred to me at that moment is that's become so rare, and that speaks a lot to Merrigan. his development there. It's fun to see somebody that perfectly times blitzes, but also can drop back and be in the right spot covering. He's doing everything he's being asked to do in a complicated defense that asks a lot, particularly of their safeties. I think that's really, it's special to see it. And really, you start thinking about it across the board at each level. It feels like there are guys that have just played really well. By the way, Isaiah Polamalu, like, I got to give him a shout out too. Like, it's just some of these guys that at the beginning of the year, we didn't know if we could rely on have become day in and day out guys that you know are going to make plays that help you win football games. This defense came out and showed that today.
Yeah, big time. And Isaiah with the 2 forced fumbles leads the team in tackles, 2 first-half fumbles. So he has 9 total tackles, 2 forced fumbles. And the one thing too, Fitz, and I don't want it to get lost in all of this, is Antonio Pierce talked going into this week about how some of those personnel changes on the punt unit. Well, one of those big changes was Isaiah was now the personal protector too. So, he's doing, playing all the snaps on defense, also contributing on special teams, right? And for a team, and you and I have talked about this a bunch, that had to win on the margins in 2024. To be successful, they had to do the little things right. Well, one of the little things is protecting your punter. One of the little things is winning the battle of field position. And I don't want to put it all on Isaiah and say, oh, this singular personnel change was the difference in today for the silver and black. But I mean, again, to your point, he does the little things right. He came in. He's a guy that when we started the season, we weren't quite sure what to expect from him, but he's played his rear end off in 2024. And I think to your point, man, he deserves a ton of credit for what he did this afternoon.
Yeah, and I know, obviously, a little context here. It's the Jags. The Jags aren't very good.
Very
either. I get that.
fair
but,
and just. Fair and just.
But this is also a Jags team that does have a dynamic weapon at wide receiver that is kind of like Brock Bowers doing things that setting the league on fire, right? It was fun to watch this secondary really handle that coverage and those coverage responsibilities really well. They handled the handoff of Brian Thomas repeatedly really well. I thought it was a good plan, and it was a well-executed plan that even kind of gives, look, let's not get it twisted. Obviously, Thomas put up huge numbers, 9 catches, 132 yards, 62 of that came on 1. But that's 9 catches on 13 targets. I thought they managed basically saying, hey, let's minimize the damage that this one guy can do and then make sure nobody else can do a lot of extra damage. That was the right game plan, and it really worked for this team.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up young Mr. Thomas, Fitz, because entering today, one of my big questions was like, who's going to kind of win this battle of the rookies? You talked about Thomas for the Jags and then Brock Bowers on the other side. I mean, 2 guys that, I wouldn't say unfortunately, but in a world of reality, playing for teams that don't have much to play for these final couple weeks, but have been putting up stupid numbers, dudes that have really bright futures in the league. And you talked about Thomas going 9 catches for 132 and a tutty. Well, Brock Bowers on the other side goes 11 for 99. And so you have to feel like in the mono battle that really didn't happen because they're on different sides of the ball, a push. And it was just a lot of fun to watch those really talented young guys out there doing their thing.
Every single week that Brock Bowers continues to play at this level, though, is a reminder that this is not an accident. The league has had enough time to start to catch up to Brock, and he certainly could be excused for hitting a rookie wall. When you think about what's asked of a rookie from the day they're drafted to suddenly moving, suddenly figuring out where they're going to live, we talk about this all the time, the human element of life, but also the fact that you've just put your body through a college football season and then straight through training for the combine, which is very weird, and straight into a training camp and trying to adjust to the professional game. Like, the rookie wall exists for a reason. I don't think it should be lost, frankly, that Brock Bowers, with a couple of weeks left in the season, is out there catching 11 balls for 99 yards. Like, there is no rookie wall, because the fact is right now today, Brock Bowers is already one of the 3 best tight ends in the entire NFL. And he's going to set records, and then he's going to break those records. Like, this is astounding to watch a team that there were several times that Aiden O'Connell looked in the pocket like he was running around for dear life saying, oh my God, I'll just see if I can fling it to Brock and do something. And that is the right approach. It works. Like, that's how good Brock is at this point.
Yeah, I mean, we look at the weekly silly things that Brock Bowers did in a statistical sense. Eclipsed 1,000 yards, north of 100 catches now, one of only 3 tight ends in NFL history to reach 1,000 receiving yards in his first NFL season. He's got Kyle Pitts and Mike Ditka are the 2, well, I should say just Mike Ditka now in front of him. But, I mean, it is pretty incredible, and I feel like it's hard not to get, I don't want to say numb to it, but it's hard. It feels like very normalized when we look at Brock doing his thing each and every week, and it can't be normal. Like, we should not, as fans, as people who cover this team, look at Brock, what he does week in and week out, what he means to this offense, just not even a full season into the NFL, and take that for granted. Assume, like, oh yeah, this is kind of what normal rookie tight ends do because he is special. He is one of one at this point. And I think if we look at kind of the big takeaways from a season 2024 for the Raiders where not a lot of things went right. I mean, if you're looking at things that 100% unequivocally, no doubt worked, the play of Mr. Bowers is number one on that list.
No doubt. And, then we got to tip our cap back to where we were in April because this draft class has made meaningful impact. I mean, I think it's a pretty easy statement to make at this point. And that's part of what you need. I mean, there's no way to tiptoe around the fact that this is a rebuild, right? So if this is a rebuild, then if we're sort of reimagining what the Raiders are going to look like for the next 5 years, it's more important than ever that right now, instead of focusing for this team like everybody will on what are you going to do in free agency and how much money we're going to spend on this superstar, that superstar, the foundation has to be built. And that's step one of the foundation is nailing the draft. And guess what? When you've got multiple guys coming in and making meaningful impact towards this late in the season, I think that speaks to something. So there are pieces here, as much as we talk about what the future of the organization looks like, seeing guys like Brock excel, seeing JPJ come out. He's gotten so comfortable in the middle of the line. That's just, we look at things. This is important for the future of the franchise.
Yeah, and I think, even going to, I don't want to say the small, but maybe the not air quotes on the field stuff. I leaned over to someone in the press box today and I said, maybe it's something, maybe it's nothing. I have a feeling it might be something. I think that it means a little something that when the players ran out of the tunnel today at Allegiant Stadium, who was leading them out of the tunnel? It was Jackson Powers Johnson, right? It's your rookie lineman, a guy who, has taken on so many of these veteran leadership type attributes. He talks after every game, right? And we've talked about the fact that the Raiders prior to today hadn't won a football game in a few months, and he is at his locker post game every day, and he talks and he breaks it down. He's accountable for good, bad, and indifferent, right? Or good, bad, and in the middle. He's leading the team out of the tunnel. We talk about those intangibles, those things that don't necessarily show up on the stat sheet, and we talk about that foundation, right? You look at Brock Bowers, you look at JPJ, you look at DJ Glaze, who's played, I think this was start number 12 for him this year. DCAM is now getting some burn on the final quarter of the season. I mean, you can see it. Yes, I know and I completely understand the very human frustration about how 2024 went for the silver and black. But if you look carefully, Fitz, you don't even have to look that carefully. There are a lot of positives to take out of what happened to this team in 2024.
Look, I feel the frustration everybody feels all the way to my core. As I said on one of my Yahoo shows this week, I understand more than anybody that works in national media what it's like to be a fan, because that's what got me to where I am, right? And my Raiders fandom is a big part of why I do what I do. And so I understand how painful these seasons are. I understand all the way back to being a kid and sitting there and watching and waiting and wishing and hoping and praying that Tom Marinovich was going to be the great answer. I've been living this my whole life. I understand why we're all frustrated, but also at some point you got to look at it and say, how does this turn around? Well, it turns around by getting a roster that can compete with the best teams in the league. And to do that, you need to have some success from young guys that are developing. DJ Glaze coming in and playing meaningful snaps this year makes a difference next year. It makes a true difference to everybody in the building that can look at some of these guys and say, okay, Richardson getting so much time, pushed into, is a reminder of the fact that there were names being called out in the middle of this game that I was genuinely laughing out loud thinking, my God, in August, we didn't even know who half these guys were. The roster turnover didn't stop after the draft. It didn't stop during training camp. The roster turnover has never stopped because of injuries, because of play, because of all of it. So at some point, it becomes really important to look at some of these details, because the outcome being not what anybody wants, can't do anything about that right now. So the question becomes, how do you build off of it? And wins like today are a big statement to how do you build off it. And I know nobody wants to hear about effort, but damn, let's look at that defense and the way they came out and played with Pop, because you and I have had to sit on this show in the past with better Raiders teams and try and figure out why the defense came out flat. That did not happen. That is not happen. This team could have checked out a month ago. The fact that they still come out and play with the Pop that they play, I think that this is all significant to what's being built.
Big time. And we talked to Adam Butler earlier this week, and he essentially said that. He goes, look, like, we on the defensive side, he goes, like, we know that this season has gone the way that it's gone, right? Like, we are not immune to that. We don't live in this kind of fairy tale world where we're playing for the postseason. But he goes, like, every time that we step on the field, he goes, you know, we're doing it for the guy next to us. We're doing it for the fans. We're doing it for our family. He goes, there's a deep sense of pride and brotherhood and wanting to finish this the right way that the Raiders defense has really preached throughout the course of that 10-game losing streak. And we see it today, right? I mean, you look at Mac Jones, and we talked about the pressure he was consistently under. But I think a big one for me today, Fitz, is we have talked so much, so much, week after week after week, it feels like, about the Raiders. Yes, their defense is playing well. They're playing with effort, but sometimes an inability to be stout up front, stout against the run. I mean, they only surrendered 72 rushing yards today, right? And it was, you know, you're just over 3 yards a pop. And look, I know it's not a eye-raising number, right? I know it wasn't like, oh, they ran 37 times for 9 yards or anything like that. But all the same, in the fact that the Raiders defense was able to, one, be balanced in that way, handle business on the ground while also making life difficult for Mac Jones. But also, I think maybe more importantly, Fitz, they were able to finish strong, because how many games have we seen over the past month or two where the Raiders defense, through no fault of their own, mind you, just wears down because they're on the field so much. Today, Fitz, they held on for dear life. Yes, it got a little tight at the end, as tradition allows it to do, but they held up there into the bargain. It's a big reason why the Raiders won this game.
Yeah, and by the way, the tradition's the same for the Jags. They've lost a ton of really close, heartbreaking games this year. So I think that's what you see, is that part of it, like, you always hear the phrase, like, learning to win. I think trying to figure out how to close out games is real in the NFL. It's real for certain locker rooms and certain cultures. And you're 1,000% right. Like, part of the reason I feel like sometimes either the run game defense falls apart or the pass defense falls apart is because so many resources are allocated to one or the other. So it's like, man, we're going to stop the run. Well, that means you're going to be exposed in the back end. Well, we're not going to let them expose us in the back end. Well, now they're going to run on you. The beauty of this game plan is that, A, they timed and disguised things really well. So guys were coming up to the line of scrimmage and then stepping back at the last second. I'm not sure that Mac Jones ever got comfortable with what was really coming at him. That is such a key to modern defense in the NFL. And then B, the other part of it is that they were winning one-on-one matchups. So now all of a sudden, when you're winning those matchups up front and you're creating havoc, you don't have to overcommit to stop anything like that. This is the way Patrick Graham's defense can look when it's being executed really well, when guys are winning the matchups, when you're playing against a team that you can go out and do this against. I think all of these are factors to what we saw today.
Yeah, and I think the end result, right, Fitz, is a much-needed, much sought-after Raiders win, their third of 2024. And we talked about kind of giving the helmet stickers to guys earlier, right? I think another guy who deserves a nice little helmet sticker is our man Amir Abdullah, who had a nice little afternoon. I tweeted out, I was like, in terms of just like entertaining, fun football players to watch, like Amir is right, what he does on special teams can be a valuable asset out of the backfield, runs the ball, leads the team in rushing today, carries the ball 7 times for 38 yards in the aforementioned score. Like, Amir is just one of those dudes, right? Like, I think it was year 10 for him now. He just keeps on trucking, dude. He just keeps on trucking, and he just finds ways to get in the end zone. He does all the small things right, takes care of his body, is ready to go, is prepared, is waiting for his opportunity. And that's a reason why he stuck around in the league so long. But man, really feel like today was a nice banner moment for him, and very happy he was able to find the end zone as well.
It's funny because when Amir Abdullah was at the Senior Bowl before he got drafted, that was the first time I'd ever gone to the Senior Bowl. And I'll never forget, I didn't know much about him. I was sitting in the stands with a bunch of agents and I had a buddy that invited me to watch the process. And I watched, and I remember writing his name down in my notebook, a little podcast, trying to make it at the time. I wrote his name down. But I wrote his name down because every single drill he was asked to partake in, he dominated. And there was a moment where they were doing a pass protection drill with all the running backs, and you watched everybody else sort of half it. They weren't really putting in the effort into it. And Amir it was like his life depended on it. And I kept looking at it and saying, man, I don't even know if this guy's going to be any good. I just want somebody that works that hard. And I thought about that today when you saw this game, because every single thing he's asked to do, he brings this explosive effort, this explosive energy to it. And you can see that that's the thing he's never lost. Sticking around in the league for 10 years is so stinking difficult for most guys to do. Amir Abdullah got that not just because he's really good at what he does, but also because you could tell he genuinely approaches every one of these drives and moments like this could be my breakthrough moment for my team. It hits different. It's always hit different. It's part of what I think I love about him as a player.
Yeah, I mean, and a dude, right? Like Amir's going to turn 32 here in the offseason, right? Like this is a guy who, and I feel like we've changed that narrative a little bit this year with some of the success of the air quotes older running backs. But like how many 32-year-old running backs are contributing on special teams, leading their team in rushing? Again, we talk about being a valuable asset out of the backfield, can be a threat in the receiving game. Like Amir is just, check. And we talk about teams, good teams. You need to have players like Amir, right? Like you need to have, every good team needs to have one or two like Amir Abdullah games over the course of a season. And the Raiders certainly got theirs today. So it was nice to see that. And I think a lot of credit too goes to this Raiders offensive line. Andre James makes his return to the starting lineup for the first time since, I think week 12, I believe. JPJ kicks over to left guard. And by and large, Fitz, and it has been one of the constant narratives of 2024 for this season, the constant moves and changes and personnel swapping on the offensive line. And it wasn't, like, we can be honest, today was not the prettiest game of football we have ever seen. At one point in the first half, we had 4 back-to-back penalties, 2 on each team. So this was not like the masterpiece, the Mozart of football games. But give credit to the big fellas up front, man, because they did what they needed to do. They gave Aiden just enough time to operate. And again, it seems like one of those themes. Like if the Raiders are able to find that continuity up front, by and large, good things happen.
Yeah, and that's where, when I mentioned earlier, JPJ's feeling comfortable on the inside. To me, I was worried that when he stepped back out to guard, remember when he was drafted, plenty of people thought he was going to be a center in the league. And then he comes over to guard for the Raiders. Andre James holds his center job. That's fine. But then he gets moved over to center. I was fearful that by putting him back at guard, it was going to create a little bit of a misstep, just a little bit of a difference in the timing. What you're asked to do is all just enough different. I was afraid there'd be some uncomfort in that process. There wasn't for JPJ at all. I thought he played a really good game there. And the inside of the interior of the offensive line held up really well. So to that end, Eddie, like you just think about what's there and you think about how young a lot of this line is. These are building block moments. Like if Dylan Parham continues to develop, if JPJ continues to grow to who we think he's going to be, DJ Glaze, like you mentioned, getting the reps he's getting, Colton has fixed a lot of the stuff over the last few weeks. I think that was bad early in the season. Like there are enough pieces here. You look around and say, okay, like I feel pretty good about this. Like this was a line we felt good about coming into this season. It just didn't work early in the season because of injury and all the changes. So I think seeing JPJ be able to switch over and still be comfortable is a testament to the fact that for the next 10 years, he's going to be a guy. Wherever you have to put him on the inside, he can do it.
First start since week 8 for Andre James. I'll correct myself. I thought it was week 12. First start since week 8 for Andre. But, Fitz, again, like, not to make it this simple, although sometimes it feels like it could be and should be this simple. Do you know what happened today for the first time in 2024 in regards to your Las Vegas Raiders, Jason Fitz? Do you know what happened?
I'm going to guess that they won the turnover battle. Is this the first time all year we've won the turnover battle?
This is the first time all year the Raiders have not committed a turnover.
Let's go.
First time. And again, right? Like we talk about it seems so simple, right? It feels like such a rudimentary kind of mundane type of thing. Like, yeah, just protect the football. Well, today they protected the football. And it's a big. I leaned over to someone in the press box, early like second quarter, when at that point, I mean, listen, credit to Mac Jones for going out there and doing his thing, right? But like, it looked awkward, it looked funky, it looked not quite seamless for a lot of the day for Mr. Jones. And I leaned over to someone in the press box in the second quarter. I said, if the Raiders don't turn the ball over, they're going to win this game, and that is exactly what happened. Aiden O'Connell did not turn the ball over. The offense in general did not turn the ball over. The defense forced some turnovers. Now, they weren't able to get points off of all those turnovers, but they forced turnovers, and they won the game. So, again, it feels like, Fitz, maybe it isn't that simple, but it kind of should be, right?
I mean, so I was watching part of the Lions-Bears game today, and on the broadcast, the commentator said we sat down with Caleb Williams this week, and we asked him what the most important thing about his job is. And he said, don't turn the ball over. And they said, okay, what's the second most important thing then? And he said, don't turn the ball over. And they said, what's the third most important thing? Caleb, without breaking a smile, just said, don't turn the ball over. And I just think we have to acknowledge that the more and more in any offense that you put on a quarterback's shoulders, the more chance there is that something goes wrong. There is a fine line between playing safe, which, by the way, Aiden didn't do in this game. I thought he let some of those balls down aggressively. He let it rip, and he didn't turn the ball over. It's just that is such a fundamental moment here where you look at it and say, man, again, this is where we yell so much about coaches all the time. As a society, like this head coach stinks, this offensive coordinator stinks, this defensive coordinator stinks. That's what we immediately go to. So much of football is about execution also. So when you see what it looks like when it's properly executed, you're like, look, I mean, come on, this was not an offensive juggernaut explosion of a game. But the Raiders did what they had to do and what they knew they were going to have to do to win the game. Considering the injuries and everything else that's been stacked against this team and where it is right now, getting a win was so significant. To see them not play scared but also not turn the ball over, I think it was wildly important in this.
Yeah, big time. And look, man, I am I never like to get on my high horse and tell people how they should feel about this, that, and the other. And you and I have talked about this a bunch, right? We have acknowledged the fact that this season has been a disappointment in so many ways, right? Like we are sitting here a few days before Christmas and the team's 3-12, right? Like that's reality. That's where we are. But I also think it's important, like, to celebrate these moments in a season like this, Fitz, where we were talking about before we started rolling. Prior to today, the Raiders hadn't won a football game since the end of September. Now, again, I'm a firm believer in you and I don't get to do what we do without the fans, right? The fans are such an integral part to everything that we do. They're a big reason we sit in this beautiful studio, in this beautiful facility. It's a big reason why we get to hang out with you. It's a big reason why Allegiant Stadium exists, right? So I'm not here to tell you how to feel, but it's okay to be happy once in a while, right? It's okay to find these moments of positivity and optimism in a season that has not been filled with positivity or optimism. You have one of the best tight ends in the NFL, right? You have an offensive line that you feel like is ascending. You have some great pieces on defense. Yes, you have questions at quarterback and other places on that roster, no doubt. But today, it was a good day to root on the silver and black, Fitz. Like, it's okay to be happy.
Hell, I don't even know if I'm like dark here, Eddie, but I say this all the time. I don't even know what I'm going to see tomorrow, right? In today's world, I know, like, we never want to think that way. But I'm just saying, when you never know what's coming, I never want to sit there and watch the Raiders lose and then sit back and say, well, that's going to be a good thing. And I will loudly, I said this to Eddie before we started, but I'm going to say this loudly for everybody listening. I will remind you all that the quarterbacks we talk about every day, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, all of these quarterbacks I've listed, all of these except for Joe Burrow, when we're talking about the greatest quarterbacks right now currently ruling the NFL for the teams that they play for, all of them that I've just mentioned that we live in fear of every single week. Oh, man, we got to take on Lamar, got to take on Josh Allen, got to take on Mahomes. What do they all have in common? They were not drafted first overall. I just got to remind you, quarterback success isn't about where you're drafted. Quarterback success is about who drafts you and how they develop you. So if you find a guy that you believe your organization can bring along and develop, you can have tremendous success with that player. You got to do it in a vacuum. You got to shut off all the noise. You got to do what the Bills did, not care what anybody else thinks about your guy, not care what anybody else thinks about the way he develops, and then go out and work on it slow and low like barbecue. I just think that we've become so obsessed with, well, now this season has to end with the first overall pick so we can get whatever quarterback we want. All right, well, what if the organization actually doesn't love any of these quarterbacks? What if none of these quarterbacks turn out to be franchise savers? What if, like, all of this was, like, for me, I want to win. I don't want to worry about what the Raiders are going to look like 4 years from now with a different quarterback. I want to win on this given Sunday so I can watch my favorite team and I can be happy for the rest of the week, Eddie. It's simple.
It is. And I piggyback off that, Fitz. And again, like, I don't want to say like stating the obvious, but just reminding people, head on over to Raiders.com, shameless plug alert, and watch the victory speech that will assuredly be up by the time that this pod hits your feeds. Look at the locker room. You think any of those guys care about draft position, this, that, the other? No, they want to win a football game. They put their bodies on the line each week. They put their time and their effort into winning a football game. And today, if we make it really black and white, Fitz, the Raiders won a football game. Today is a good day. So again, and I get it, right? Like, I'm not here to tell anyone how they should feel. I'm not here to say that my feelings are more valid than yours or anyone else's, right? But I just remind everyone, it's okay to be happy. Christmas is coming up. We're in the middle of the holiday season. life is good, baby. Life is good. And for the first time in too long, we get to celebrate a victory Monday and celebrate a Raiders win. On that note, Fitz, in that spirit, what are you cooking on, man? I know you're a big holiday guy. What does the outside of your beautiful home look like these days?
I'm simple. I got little bows, like little metal bows on the fence. I went simple
nice.
outside.
That's
the
nice.
inside is all Halloween. It's all Christmas glow. I went straight from Halloween to Christmas glow. So like I'll be honest, like because I'm in Connecticut where the sun is down before, like literally, Eddie. I am in full darkness by halftime of a Raiders game in the middle of the afternoon. But you know what I do? I keep all the lights off and I let the lit mantle and the lit fireplace and everything provide my Christmas glow so that I have the energy of, I feel like Sinatra's watching the game with me, maybe singing a little old Christmas tune with me. That's I find so much peace in watching.
Yes, the Vibe King, Jason Fitz. Who would have known? But Fitz, on our way out, because I know you actually have to get to your real job. And speaking of your real job, what are you doing tonight, tomorrow, this week? I always say you're one of the busiest men in sports media. So what do you got cooking?
Inside coverage for Yahoo Sports. Check it out. We'll tape our show tonight, react to every single game as we do every single week. We talk a lot of Raiders because, frankly, my fandom. So you should check out Inside Coverage. You can also follow me at Jason Fitz. And if you're a college football fan, the College Football Power Hour, where we react to all of the games happening there. Episodes come up every couple of days on all the shows. Check out Yahoo Sports or follow me at Jason Fitz.
Love it. And my favorite part, Fitz, the handle's so simple, right? There's no underscores, there's no uppercase this, lowercase that, numbers, just at Jason Fitz.
No.
And it was, dude, I was joking with you beforehand that I was like, I hope we can get you a win because, my friend, you are not lying where you have discussed through just the kind of funkiness of our every other week schedule that we have with you and our friend Bryce Butler, just the way it's landed. Not a lot of happiness when old Jason Fitz hits the fifth quarter airwaves. So I am just overjoyed that in a small token of our appreciation, we can have you on here to talk a little winning football, to look ahead to the holidays. Life is good. It was so good to see you. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, all that good stuff to you and yours. So for Eddie Paskal, my guy Jason Fitz, and everyone else at Silver and Black Productions, we will see you guys next week, Isaiah, right? Next week? Yep, I'm getting the thumbs up. We will see you guys next week, same time, same place, for our next episode of the Fifth Quarter, presented by Twitch.